Hi, this is David Sommerfleck, and I am the owner and chief WordPress website developer for AffordableWebsitesDenver.com. And I wanted to do a short video on some very common problems or mistakes that I see being made both by web developers and by their clients. So why not point these mistakes out and just try to help as many people as possible? So let's review some of these very, very common mistakes to avoid. Okay, the first thing, and before we get started, let me say, if anybody has any questions at all, please feel free to go to affordablewebsitesdenver.com and visit the contact us page, and you can call 720-468-0472 24 hours a day and leave a message, or you can email us at affordablewebsitesdenver@gmail.com. And I'm always open to constructive input and legitimate questions. Please don't email me to tell me you think I'm silly or something like that. Not beneficial. So let's focus in on how we can help. So some common mistakes that I see made on a regular basis. First of all, Flash. Everybody likes Flash. I mean, why wouldn't you, right? You want to see special effects, you want to show off, and it's a natural impulse to feel proud of what you've done. There are problems inherent with Flash. You can have a very, very beautiful looking website that functions very, very well over many, many years and not use Flash. And the problems with Flash are that basically, I type in problems with Flash, and here's an example of all the different issues that non-developers may not know about. And everybody likes Flash, but the problems are, if you have a website in Flash, basically Flash doesn't save the text. Text isn't going to show up. So if I embed search engine optimization coding into a Flash website, search engines simply won't pick it up. They won't know. They won't read it. Also, Flash does not always work with iPhones, iPads, Blackberries, things like that. In a lot of cases, it'll cause their system to crash. It won't show up with older browsers at all in many cases. Also, Flash is very, very difficult to create and configure and just basically work on in general. Now, if you're a web developer and you say, oh, I know Flash, I can write Flash or what have you, that's great, more power to you. But for the client, it's really not beneficial to have a website based in Flash. If they want to update the SEO, the search engine optimization, you have to call a developer to do that. And a developer who specializes in Flash is not going to work on the cheap. Okay, it's highly specialized. And I think one other issue regarding Flash is to make sure that if you're going to go with it, recognize the issue with search engine optimization. That's going to be difficult to update and maintain. It may or may not show up in iPhones and iPads and Blackberries. It's going to be difficult to update and configure and make changes to. If it crashes, too bad. You're going to have to call a different developer. And usually if you have a different developer coming in, it's like an architect. It's like building a house or fixing a car. Every new person you bring in is going to do something different. So they're going to have a different approach. They're going to have to get acclimated to what was done before. And in my opinion, it just is not worth the time and money and frustration. And finally, with Flash, you'd want to test it out in all the different browsers. And in some cases, it isn't going to look like what you think. Even a regular website, it doesn't always look what you would expect in different browsers, let alone one with Flash. And so that's what I wanted to address with Flash. What are the top browsers that you want to test with? Well, let's see. I typed in top web browsers, and this is what I came up with. So let's see what their list is. Okay. Well, this is fairly accurate. You have Firefox right here, This is Safari, Internet Explorer, Chrome. This is for Opera, but I find that very, very few people actually use Opera unless they are disadvantaged or handicapped somehow, or are developers themselves, because Opera basically strips away a lot of the special effects and everything, and just, I just want to read the text, that kind of thing. So most people are not going to be using Opera. You can develop for it, but it's just a big headache. Opera here, 2.2% of the population. Okay, so you can't really develop for that small a niche group. Like I said, it's going to strip away most of what you see. So you want to work with Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, Safari. Those are going to be your top contenders. Usually you're not going to be able to develop a very attractive looking website in Opera that's going to look great in all of these different browsers unless it's extremely basic. Now let's talk about design. A lot of people love special effects with websites. I can't tell you how many times I've been to websites that have music starting right away. In a lot of cases, you can't even stop the music from playing, and it becomes annoying. It becomes difficult to navigate the website where you have to keep hearing this thing over and over again. So it's very popular, though. A lot of people love to do it. But from a developer standpoint, I don't recommend it. It kind of takes away from your website. It takes away the professionalism, in my opinion. You don't hear music blaring when you go to Bank of America. You don't hear music blaring when you go to a lot of professional business websites. Even for a lot of bands, you don't hear music playing right away. You could have the player be available and let people have the option of whether or not they want to listen to it. But unless you're a band or even a television station, it's something to really think about. Also, it's going to slow the load time. It's going to be a lot more work for the developer to make sure that the player works on all different browsers. So if you're the client, you really want to check that. Do I really need to have music blaring as soon as they go to the website? Knowing that it's going to slow down the load time, it's going to take the developer much more time to make sure that the player works in all different browsers, make sure that the music is there and available. Is it playing continuously or on a rotate? How is that going to work? Usually it takes away from a professional business website, in my opinion. Now, as far as design, everybody wants clean, simple web design, or at least they should. So I just wanted to type in some examples of that to see what we would see, what would show up. And clean, simple, basic design, as you see here. Usually the more imagery you have, the more it confuses the website visitor. You want to have things simple for them, or at least as simple as you possibly can. The most biggest design thing now is, like you see here, one box and then maybe something across it, something here. So you have the bar across the top here, imagery, maybe a menu here, and then something else underneath it. Usually 3 or 4 rectangular shapes. And that's one of the most recent design patterns. Here you see another one, looks very nice. The menu here, image here, maybe a little sub-menu, and then some boxes here. And it doesn't always work for people who have more content needs, though. Here you see a little bit more. So a lot of this depends on the needs of the client. What are you communicating? How much do you have to say? Here it's pretty simple. So it has to do with, what are you communicating, and how simple do you want the design? But the simpler the better, and the more likely it is to show up in different browsers, okay, and then translate well into the mobile-friendly view, which of course you're going to want. That should go without saying. Okay, the other thing is, when you are a client and you want someone to develop a website for you, please make sure that you ask them to develop a website using WordPress. If they tell you they don't know WordPress or don't design for WordPress, run screaming in the other direction. Come to affordablewebsitesdenver.com. it's not that anybody can develop a WordPress website, but the content management system is by far the easiest content management system to learn. It's the easiest one to learn. It's the easiest one, therefore, to teach a client. If you want to be able to manage and update your website into the future, WordPress is the way to go. Some developers have their area of expertise where they've learned Drupal and Joomla, and that's fine. They're more difficult to learn, they're more time consuming to learn, and certainly more time consuming to teach. So if you want to be able to manage and update the website yourself, you're not going to have weeks and months to study Joomla and Drupal unless you're a developer. So it makes sense. You want to work with WordPress. And we provide training in WordPress as well at affordablewebsitesdenver.com in Denver, Colorado. So let me see. Another thing is, the economy is still not in the best shape that it should be in. And so a lot of people are trying to cut corners any way they can, and it's certainly understandable. There are a lot of problems with this, though. When people try to cut corners and they want to get these freebie websites or $5 a month websites, there are always strings attached. You're going to end up paying for a domain name if you want one. You're going to end up paying usually through the nose if you want e-commerce, or in some cases, if you write content that this company does not like, you could wake up with your website deleted. If you use imagery that could be from an old PowerPoint presentation or somewhere else where it's not approved, your website could be deleted. You could very easily wake up and have ads all over your website, and you really don't have any say over this because, again, this other company owns it. And in a lot of cases, they own what you write on that website, and there's nothing you can do about it. Here I typed in, why would you want to create getting a free website? And here you see the young lady who owns this company here, her first comment. Problems with free websites, and there's so many problems, such as having ads all over it that you have no say over. The hosting provider company literally owning everything that you write, everything you post. You have to pay for the domain name, the e-commerce. You may have difficulty making updates. You may have difficulty updating the SEO. Yes, you want to save money, but in my opinion, it just makes more sense that if a few $100s or even a couple of $1,000s for something really top of the line is a big issue, don't eat out for a few meals, or do what you can in other ways to save money so that you can afford this, or work out a payment plan with the developer. Any professional website developer is going to have payment plans in place that they can work out something for you as the project develops. And while we're on that subject, another huge issue that a lot of website developers run into in working with clients is you need content. I can't just type gibberish into the pages of a website, and you see that a lot, where you see sample websites with lorem ipsum, and that's basically Latin gibberish. But in a lot of cases, the website developer can create a beautiful website, but then the client will come back and say, well, I don't have the content written out yet. Give me time. Days turn into weeks. Weeks can even turn into months in many cases, where the client has not thought out the menus and categories, which is called taxonomy, or the client hasn't thought out what they want to write in their pages or how they want this categorized. The client may or may not have images to use, and they want the developer to go find them. So the developer has to pay for these images and worry about the copyright issues. So that's how a website design project could go on. What could be done in a week or two goes on to be months. I've seen cases where website developers received less than half of the payment down up front. 6 or 7 or 8 months go by and the website is never completed. They just never hear back from the client. The client decides to go with someone else, and it becomes this big confused mess. So that's another issue, is to be prepared to have your menus and categories and everything already written out. And you can certainly just Google taxonomy or menu systems or user interface examples, and just see many, many different examples of how to do this. Another thing is when we're dealing with the template systems, we've already discussed that they come with strings attached. The other main issue that I wanted to talk about, other than WordPress and these template systems, is I think it's much simpler to, once you find the developer, you meet with the developer, you like the developer, you work out the payment plans and the contract, stick with that person. Make sure that you can get along, that you can communicate socially. A lot of website developers are technically brilliant. They're brilliant programmers. They may have degrees in computer programming, but in a lot of cases they could have issues with social skills, and that's true for any profession where the person specializes, and they may not have to necessarily be that public or social. You have dentists, doctors, lawyers. Not as many lawyers, but in a lot of cases you'll have programmers who are quite brilliant but have difficulty communicating something very, very technical and specialized to the client. So if you don't know something, make sure you ask. Make sure that all the details are worked out, and once you work with the client, or once you find the web developer, stay with that developer. I've met so many people through my WordPress training classes and just meeting clients for WordPress websites in Denver. I've seen so many cases where people have started restaurant websites only to find that when they want to change prices, now they can't. Because they have to hire a developer basically to work with that e-commerce program. They were never trained in WordPress. They were never trained in the e-commerce program, and now they're in over their head. They can't change a simple price, or everything is messed up. Or they end up with a Thesis, Genesis, or Headway template, which basically changes the way WordPress works. So again, now you need a developer to help you make simple updates. So you want to pick a website developer who you have open, relaxed, easy conversation with, that you ask all your questions. Everything can be worked out to your satisfaction to both parties, and be clear about what you want up front. If you go with one developer and then try to find someone cheaper, and this one does this, and I have with Elance, you have one developer in Russia and one in China and one in India playing off each other. Well, there's going to be so many communication issues, and I've seen this so many times. Just find out what you want. Find someone locally. If you're in Denver, affordablewebsitesdenver.com. Sit down with that developer, work out what you want, work out the payment plan, work out the contract, and get everything done in a very methodical manner, and make sure that you get training in every step of the way in WordPress and with e-commerce. Even if you don't necessarily think you're interested in that, you're going to want to be able to manage or update that website at some point in the future if it is a legitimate business you're serious about and committed to. So I hope these tips have helped. And again, if you're in Denver, Colorado, or anywhere in the world, affordablewebsitesdenver.com. Look us up online, and feel free to give us a call or send me an email. And I really, really hope that this brief video has helped you, and I wish everybody well.